And welcome to the Football 360 Show, the fastest hour of football talk on the planet. I am JP Rock, your host, here with my co-host, Mr. Matt Bierman. Matt, how you doing?
Doing well.
Fantastic.
Doing well.
You can catch more stuff about Football 360 Show at football360show.com. You can also catch us on our socials. I am at JP Rock Scout You on Instagram and JP Rock MO on Twitter or X.
Yeah, on Twitter/X, we are Elite Football and Elite Football Academy on Instagram.
And, of course, at Football 360 Show on the Gram or the X, however it is, however you want to tell it. We've made it in, though sliding around. No bad weather. The bad weather's passed, so hopefully everybody's good. Different stuff happens, though, now that the bad stuff's gone. I don't know if you ever noticed this, but my tires always, the pressure always gets jacked up.
Oh, yeah.
And you cannot find an air hose.
You know
around
what?
the city of St. Louis.
Or you get there and then your tire's a little low and then you figure out someone else broke it before you and you put it on your tire and now your tire's even lower.
Even lower, or it goes too high.
Yeah, too high. Yep.
So fun times in the city of St. Louis.
Yep.
As always. Special thanks to our sponsor, Wendy's in Chesterfield. Family owned and operated, known for their pizza, wings, and live entertainment. Special thanks to them for sponsoring us. They've been there from the beginning, Matt, and I know you love it.
I love it.
It's a great
time. They do a great job. Wings are phenomenal.
Yes, and they have live entertainment, and you can do it on their heated patio or indoors. So special thanks to them. We have a special guest in studio with us today. Legendary Jefferson City J, Mizzou wide receiver, and Chicago Bears.
Tennessee
Titans.
I believe Mizzou Hall of Fame.
Is that right? Well, let's let the man go ahead and tell us. Mr. Justin Gage, assistant coach at CBC High School, football player. Justin, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing real well. Glad to be here today.
Good. So since we kind of jacked your bio up, go ahead and just give us a rundown.
Yeah, graduated from Jefferson City High School, had an opportunity to win a state championship, lost one to Darren Sunken in Riverview at the time. Went on to play at University of Missouri, ended up becoming a Hall of Famer at the University of Missouri. Then got drafted to Chicago, where I played 4 years, and Tennessee Titans, where I played another 4.
That's a heck of a. And currently, you're on the CBC cadet staff.
Yes, on the CBC cadet staff, receiver coach over there.
Receiver coach. So winning more state championships.
Yeah,
you got 3 under your belt now, right?
Two.
2
state championships, 3 games, 2 championships.
Well, there you go. Nice.
Pretty good record.
It's a pretty good record. So wait a second. The J, you won one with the Jays, right?
1-1, lost 1. Yeah.
1-1, lost 1, and then both times with CBC, right?
1-2 and lost 1.
1-2, lost 1. So 3.
Yep.
So man's got 3 state championships under his belt.
But also, I always tell kids, because he also coaches at our facility, and I always say, hey, name the last guy that you know that played basketball at a Power 5 school and played basketball and football. So got to do both. There's not many of those.
Yeah.
I mean, that
You left that out.
And all these guys go into Mizzou now, I'm going to play baseball and football. Then they realize, like, it's a lot of work, right? And getting to do both, I don't.
Coaches kind of frown on that today. So how was that being able to play both sports?
For me, I mean, I enjoyed it. I loved it. And there was kind of a pro to it for me. I was scared to death to do all the winter conditioning, right? And so it was like, right?
Yeah, those are the worst.
What football requires. But being able to play basketball at that time, man, it really just gave me that competitive nature, man. Just let me go into another sport. And I think by playing basketball, it just made me appreciate and love football even more. Because there's that time of the year where, you get into something else and now you miss the game that you're there to play.
Yeah. So who was the head basketball coach at the time you played for?
Quinn Snyder.
Snyder, really?
Yep. So the recruiting process with me, my senior year was Norm Stewart and Kim Anderson at the time, and Norm moved on and Quinn came in and he finished the recruiting process, and that year he got myself, Kareem Rush, and Josh Kroenke.
Very nice. So the only other guy that I remember who played both sports was Lamont Frazier. I don't know if you remember Lamont.
Yeah, but didn't he do that later? Like Lamont did it after.
I think Lamont was with Norm Stewart.
Yeah.
So
but I think he played football after, kind of towards the tail end of his.
He started out as a basketball player and then played football at the end. Yeah.
But yeah, you don't see a lot of guys that are dual sport guys in college, which I always think is interesting because that gets into the age old question of multi-sport athletes, because you always, every year national championship time, they run the promo of, well, this guy was a multi-sport athlete. And the one thing they never really run, though, is how long did they play those sports in high school? Did they play it freshman year? Did they play it sophomore year? Did they play 3 sports their entire career? Did they wind it down as they got closer? Did they just split it down to 2? But yeah, I think that's interesting. But I also think it's interesting. Very few kids actually play. If it was really good for you, why don't more play 2 sports in college? That's a question I always like to ask those guys. But you don't. I think that's an interesting thing, and I think that day and age is kind of long gone. I mean, baseball guys with the quarterbacks, sometimes you don't see a lot of that otherwise.
Yeah, I think the big thing is college, especially if you're a 2-sport and football is one of your sports, the coaches need you there, right? And they don't want to jeopardize their contracts with you getting hurt in another sport, and that becomes a big thing. Also, just being around your teammates and growing with your teammates and building that camaraderie. That's something that you miss out on a little bit. But I mean, again, I'm a big fan of if you can play multiple sports, go do it, go enjoy it. Like, you got one life to live, you got one opportunity to live your dreams, and at some time you'll figure out what it is you want to do.
Yeah, at some point, you'll figure out what your pathway is, and I think it usually becomes really obvious. Like when you get 16, 17, like it's like, okay, this sport means a little bit more to me than this sport, right? And I'm starting to really gravitate. And I think football is one of those games that usually is a game that really attracts kids later in their athletic cycle, because it becomes it's a game. Once you start playing it, you fall in love with it.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think what grade did you start playing in?
5th and 6th grade was flag football for me. Now, before that, I mean, I was the youngest of 7. I had 4 older brothers. So I was always with those guys playing. And, back then, Nintendo and all that stuff was out, but it wasn't as, we didn't have social media. So every day we're outside playing something, basketball, baseball, football, whatever it is. So we were always out. And so by the time I got to, 5th grade, 6th grade flag football, I still had a couple years of, street football under my belt.
There we go, right there on the screen. Some highlights of 12 Gage catching some passes. I think you scored a hoop. Now, what position did you play at Mizzou, basketball wise?
It's funny. So my freshman year, I came in as a point guard, and in high school, I played point guard and small forward. From the 1 to the 4. Got to college, and first thing was, all right, let's play point guard. Well, the difference is in college, those basketball players train for that all year, right? And so it's a lot different than coming off the high school football field and jumping into basketball versus college. And so I remember my first game, I had to guard AJ Guyton, point guard from Indiana. And I mean, he gave me the business.
AJ was really good.
Oh yeah, he was really good. I mean, he'd give the average player the business, but me, he just took advantage. And I was like, you know what, coach, might look for a different position.
Right.
But even trying to guard Keon Dooling in practice and Grauer, those guys, man, they really showed me that it's a different level. College and high school is completely different.
Right.
You figure those guys like a Brian Grauer, he was the guy that basketball was pretty much his life,
son of coach.
Yeah. And probably not the most unbelievably sized guy, or I just remember watching just
maybe.
But man, he was well honed and real. He was a basketball player. Like it's what he did.
Absolutely.
And I think, but it's one of those things where I think you can take advantage of as a high school basketball player. You're right. You come out of your football season, you're ready to go because you're an athlete. You're still going to out athlete a bunch of guys on the court because they may have worked all off season, but if they're not great athletes, you're gonna get to the ball faster than they would or go higher than they can.
Right.
But I think that starts to happen in football too, because you start to see kids that are just really good athletes. They survive until they get to that point. And I always say they think they're really good, but they just haven't met the other guys yet that they're going to really be competing with. And I think everybody has an eye-opening, like that eye-opening moment in basketball. Everybody has it in college football.
Yep.
And it's that, oh my God, I'm not as fast as I thought I was. I'm not as tough as I thought I was. And these guys have a 4-year head start on me. Yeah. And I think we talk a lot about, and I want to talk about it today, but that's at some point you have to rely on something other than your athleticism.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. And the one thing, kids don't think about is, like you said, you're going to a program, as a senior in high school, you're going to be a freshman in college. And so now you're the youngest kid in the room. Right. But the other thing is, every guy in that room with you was the guy at their high school.
Yeah.
They were the guy. That's why they're there. And so it's not like, you're going to, you're going to get a scholarship from your high school team and you're going to play with a lot of guys like the guys at your high school team that you were way better than when you didn't do anything. Like, these guys are there for a reason. And I don't think a lot of kids really understand that and realize that.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head. When you're in high school and you're like a high level guy, and at most programs, unless they're really holding you accountable, we do have a tendency to treat guys with a little bit more kick gloves when it comes to like the superstars. And I think that creates a really bad scenario for their long-term success,
Yep.
especially if they have a little mental weakness. If they're mentally tough and they've been kind of brought up where they're like, no, I'm going to fight through this when they meet adversity for the first time, those guys can survive. But the guys that kind of really think it is that easy and they don't really know why they got recruited other than the fact they were a sophomore and they were 6'4",
Yep.
and they could jump and someone saw them jump and catch and we're going to offer you. Well, the problem is at some point you have to understand what those nuances of the game are and what the assignments of the game are, right?
Yeah.
It's funny. I heard a clip right before he came in here, and it was Gronk, and he was asking Bill O'Brien had asked him what everybody else was doing on the play. And he goes, I don't know. I have no idea. He's like, just throw me the ball. I'll get open.
Right.
But I would argue someone like him is kind of still an outlier because there's not a lot of guys that were his size that ran like him. So he still kind of had that mentality in the pros. But as you know, 99% of the other guys on those teams are very similar to each other. And what's going to separate you, right? The ability to follow orders, be where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there, and then block, catch, tackle, whatever your assignment is, you need to be able to do it.
Absolutely. And that's the game. It becomes mental at that point. Because like you said, 99% of the guys there physically are in the same window, and you might have 1% of guys that are just a little different. Your Randy Mosses, right? You look at Peyton Manning, you look at Tom Brady, and they're just average athletes when you look at them, right? They're not very fast, anything like that. But what makes them different? Their mentality, mentally, how sharp they are. They know every position on the field, what every position's doing, and they can process that information faster than anybody else.
They're football players.
They're
not just athletes. They're football players.
They're football players.
And they process.
Yes. And so when you say football players, just to be clear, football players all around, just having athletic talent, but also being a student of the game,
right?
Learning every aspect of the game. Because a lot of guys think, well, I'm a football player because I can run fast, or I'm a football player because I can catch well. Well, there's a lot more to it than that. And at some point, your card is going to get pulled, and it's going to. Can you live to the hype?
Right. And we talked about that being a football player, and you coached one of those guys in Jeremiah McClellan. Another guy is Aeneas Williams. You could put them any place on the field, and they're going to excel.
Yes. And so, I love Jeremiah. I had great conversations with him. And so one of the conversations I had with him is like, hey, you're a great football player. You're a great high school football player. I was like, but where you're going, that next step, you're going to get put in a fray where there's a whole bunch of Jeremiah McClellans.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, what do you do different than those guys? Are you going to be a student of the game? And you look at them in high school, and I'm like, you work out and you work out a ton now, but there's nobody there to really push you when you work out. Now you're going into an environment where guys are going to work out just as hard as you, just as much as you. But now you've got a faster guy. You've got a guy that may be taller. You got a guy that may be older. You got a guy that's come from a family situation where he may be trying to get his family out of a certain, stigma that they're in, or whatever the case might be. So
situation.
Yeah, situation. So there's different things going on. It's like, so what makes you different? How are you going to, apply yourself so that you can continue to reach the goals that you have set for yourself?
Right. And as you said, there are a bunch of Jeremiahs there. There were a bunch of Justin Gages when you went. But so when did you realize that you were above that? When did you realize that you separated yourself from just everybody else who was a good high school football player at Mizzou?
I'd probably say my sophomore year, going into the season my sophomore year. And so after my freshman year, I went off and played basketball. We got a new offensive coordinator in Bill Cubitt. He installed an offense. So when I came back after basketball season, it was directly into the spring game. I think 2 days later, we're in the spring game, played quarterback in that. And I didn't know any of the plays. So a lot of the pass plays, I just ended up scrambling. And so Coach Cuba was like, hey, we're going to move you to receiver. Are you okay with that? And so for me, I was like, well, yeah, I'll do that. Anything for the betterment of the team. So moving over to receiver and then being at the bottom of the depth chart. that was extremely uncomfortable for me because I've never been in a position where I'm not playing, where I'm not, felt like I was the guy or whatever. Right. And so seeing the guys in front of me, it was like, well, I can do what they're doing. I can do it, and it's like, and so for me, it was, all right, I got to compete. I've got to find a way up the depth chart. And so, week by week, just continue to get better. It helped me being a quarterback, understanding defenses and things like that. So when I moved to receiver, it was easier to dissect the field. I can pick coverages out, just like that. Where I struggled was my ability to run routes. I didn't have any, I could play backyard ball.
You knew where it was supposed to be.
Yeah, I knew where to get to. Right. I knew where to get to and when to be there, but I didn't have the detailed routes that I later learned. But for me, it was just being competitive. And so I just slowly started moving up the depth chart. And I think throughout the summer and by Clemson game, I didn't get very many snaps. That was one of our first games. And we played Michigan State. And, I got some more reps. I made some plays. We played, I think, Western Michigan. I blocked a punt and scored a touchdown that game. And, by the time we played Nebraska, I was getting my first start and just went out versus Nebraska and just had a day. And so from there, it was like, never look back.
So what did you do between moving from quarterback to the point where you never looked back to get to be that good of a receiver?
It was just the work. It was putting in the work in the summertime, doing 7-on-7, just going out with the quarterbacks. And so having a good relationship with the quarterbacks. One, because I went to high school with one of those quarterbacks. The other two quarterbacks I was real good friends with. One was my roommate and Darius Outlaw. And so we would just always go out and play catch and run routes. And so, the more time I spent with them, the more confidence they got in me. And then from there, it was, anytime you get opportunity on the field, just compete, right? Don't take any snap for granted. Don't take any opportunity to be out there for granted. Because at the end of the day, guys get injured, guys stop playing, whatever the case may be. You just, whatever the case may be, you don't know when that next snap's going to be. You don't know when your last day of playing the game is going to be. So take advantage of it.
So mindset, dedication, and discipline.
Absolutely.
So last night I had a coach come in and Power 5 offensive coordinator, and he made a comment. We were talking, and he said he was talking about in reference to a kid that was a quarterback they're looking at, they've offered, and a couple of younger quarterbacks are just in there, you got middle school, the early high school age. And he made a comment. He said, when you're at my level, he's like, the assumption is we're going to teach you a bunch of stuff. He goes, he's like, as long as your mechanics aren't jacked up, I'm not really going to mess with it. Right? There's some fundamental things that we have to do to get the ball out of our hands that's going to execute inside of our offense. But, as long, you come to us because we believe in what you can do already. Okay. He said, but now here's the caveat. We don't get to spend much time developing you in practice other than when it's scheme oriented, like what we're trying to execute. Mm-hmm. He said, the NCAA limits how much time I can spend with you. So we use that for film and on practice schemes and schematic type work, teamwork. He's like, on the flip side, he's like, the guys that separate themselves in our system, they're working on their own an hour to 2 hours a day. And that's just not film. It's working on mechanical stuff. So they need to know how to do all this. And I said, would it be fair to say that you could have a guy that's more talented coming in that believes his own hype, that's, believes where he's at on the depth chart, and have a guy, outwork him? He's like, it happens all the time. He's like, if a guy's doing an extra hour a day or 2 hours a day of work and the other guy's not doing it, it only stands to reason someone's going to pass the other one up. Right. And like one of my famous, most famous quotes is you can only coast when you're going downhill. Right. And a lot of guys like to coast.
Yep.
Right. And so going uphill is hard work. And so
everybody loves comfort.
They do. And I think that's fun. The easiest thing is to rely upon when you are the guy. And so in high school, a lot of precedent is set because if you are the dude, sometimes you are you're in practice, people leave you alone, they don't mess with you. And you brought up a perfect point. Who's pushing you?
Right.
Who are you around that's pushing you? Even if a coach is pushing you, it's hard when the water level is below you.
Yes.
Right. And you're playing out of the water. What happens when you're up to it in your neck? Right.
Yep.
And you don't know how to swim very well.
Right.
I think I made a reference to something we were talking about last week. I said, you get invited into D1 football, Power 5. You're in the deep end of the pool with no life support, no flotation devices around you. Yeah. You either figure it out or you're gone.
Yep.
Right. And the other thing is, sometimes it takes time to figure it out, right? And so these guys are so apt to, I didn't play as a freshman, I'm going to go somewhere else now. And now there's an escape hatch. Whereas when we were younger, there was no escape hatch. Right? If you left, you sat out of here, right?
Yep.
And you weren't going to the same conference. You weren't going to a heated rival. You're sitting out, and right, or you had to drop down, right? And sometimes you have to sit out then. So I think the guys that learn how to work when they're in high school or even middle school, when they start to learn those work habits, can really separate themselves from the pack.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think that's one thing that's missing with the high school kids is they don't understand the work that it takes, and they don't understand that through the recruiting process, it's a car salesman pitch. We're going to tell you everything great about yourself, everything great about our program, but when you get through those doors, now you're here to work. And they're not going to know your name. You don't get a name on the back of your jersey. Mm-hmm. You can be a receiver wearing a number 50 jersey or something like that, and you have to earn your stripes, things like that. And so it's really a grind. And so I think a lot of the young guys think that, hey, this guy loved me during the recruiting process. Oh, I'm going to be the starter next year. And it's like, no, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. No, everybody loves you. And I tell kids first thing, when they tell you they love you, don't believe it, because they don't love you. It's a business transaction.
I was once told, and this is not, don't take this the wrong way, but if a coach's lips are moving during recruiting, probably lying, and not lying like in a bad lie type of way, meaning they're telling you what you want to hear, but the lie you're going to figure out
like
is
when
you get on the other side. When you get on the other side of the fence, you realize like, oh, this is what I was signing up for. This is what I thought it was going to be rosy all along, and and balloons everywhere and fun, and taking pictures in uniforms. Then you get on the other side of the fence and you realize like, oh, there's a grind to this,
right?
Like none other.
Yep.
And you're expected to do things on your own, right? And so but you said earlier about a guy like Tom Brady. I listened to something. I think Julian Edelman was talking about him. And then Brady cuts in on it, and he would watch film of practice before the game, right? So the week leading up. So he would do his own cut-ups from himself.
Yep.
And he would watch every practice play. And then he would make, separate from the team meetings, he would make all the receivers come into the room with him, and he would go over and watch the film with them and then say, look, if this happens in the game, what are we going to do? Because in practice, we did it this way, but what if this happens?
Mm-hmm.
And he had a bunch of those scenarios. That as a competitor, everybody sees the fun and all that stuff. But the reality of it is there's a person that wants to win so badly that he will do whatever it takes, even if he doesn't have all the athleticism in the world, to go out there and absolutely dominate his opponent. And he did it before the game even started.
Yes, and it's chasing perfection, right? Mm-hmm. He wants to be perfect. Very similar to what Kobe. And one of the things Kobe said was, he works out 8 to 12 hours a day. And so if he's working out 8 to 12 hours a day, and you're only working out 2 hours of the day, in a month, how many more hours is he working? In a year, how many more hours is he working? And if he's at the top of his game and he's working like that, how would you ever expect to catch him?
Yeah, and you're not going to match him. You just can't match him.
Not at all.
And I think that's what a lot of kids don't quite get, that level of, because we see it on Instagram and we see it on Twitter. We see it on all the different social media, YouTube videos. We see all the great highlights and all the things that make you feel excited about playing the game.
Yes.
And then reality sinks in and you're like, oh, it's just a bunch of guys up playing catch, getting extra work in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they're doing it in 100 degrees. They're doing it in 10 degrees. They're doing it in windy days. They're doing it when they don't feel well. All those things come into play. And I think, as we kind of like talk through like the state of what's going on, and you and I talk about it often, as JP and I do, there's a lot of lies. Like, and people all want to tell you that they're in control of like your destiny and they're going to help you get to this thing and help you do this and help you do that. At the end of the day, you got to help yourself.
Yes.
And if you're not prepared to help yourself, I don't care who speaks on your behalf. It ain't happening.
Right. Absolutely. Yep. You got to be prepared to help yourself. And the other thing is consistency. Guys will do something and get it on film. and they'll send that out and like, this is who I am. And the reality is, no, that's not who you are. Like, you did that one time.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to do that on a consistent basis is, what we're looking for. And college coaches will tell you the same thing. College coaches and scouts, man, they spend their entire year, they get paid a lot of money to find kids. And so it's not going to take them long to see what you're doing and how you move, the movements you make, how you act, your character, before they say, okay, this is a guy that I can really follow, right? And so you've got guys taking pictures of one-handed catches that they may be doing on a defender, but the defender's playing half, but or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, you can't promote yourself that way. But you grind in the, you grind in the dark, you grind in the shadows, and all that's going to come to fruition for you. Game day comes, you're going to have it there for them to see. You're going to, those movements are going to become natural for you. The acceleration, whether it's the detail being in your routes, or if you're a pass rusher, just coming off the edge, things like that, they show up on film. And even though you may not be getting a sack on that rush, how you come off the ball, how you're reading, how you're playing, they see that stuff, and that's what they're looking for.
And that's why I like to scout in person. And I know you see me on the sidelines all over the place, because there's a lot of guys who are computer screen scouts, and right, and they look at everybody's huddle, and everybody looks great.
Yep.
Right? Everybody's a star on huddle, but you need to see the stuff that they're doing in between plays, on plays that they're not targeted or whatever else they're doing, to take the totality of how they are as a player. And let's go back to the Jeff City days. When did you start on varsity, and did you always play quarterback?
No, free safety was my position. And so when I was in high school, so at Jeff City, we didn't allow freshmen to play varsity. And so my freshman year, I played JV. My sophomore year, I was a free safety, and that was kind of my love. I was a big Atwater, Ronnie Lott guy. Like, I love free safety and just wanted to be a headhunter. And so my sophomore year, about 3 games into the season, I ended up starting, and we played our rival at the time, Rockhurst. And I ended up having 9 or so tackles and was the player of the game that game. And so for me, it was like, I've arrived. Yeah, I've arrived. And so, so my sophomore and junior year, I played free safety. I was a quarterback just because I was one of the more athletic kids, and I'd always played free safety and quarterback. So my sophomore year, Kirk Props, who ended up going to Mizzou, was a quarterback. My junior year, Kirk Farmer, who ended up going to Mizzou, was a quarterback. And so my senior year, I got a chance to play quarterback and free safety. And so at that point in time, I thought free safety was the position for me. When I got recruited to go to Mizzou, it was as a free safety. And so getting up to Mizzou and one of our quarterbacks being academically ineligible, there was an open spot there, and they needed to fill it. So, we had a conversation, and because I had some quarterback experience, they wanted to use me as a third quarterback.
So what offense were you guys running at Jeff City? Because I know you guys ran the wishbone for a while there.
Oh, triple option.
We
probably threw the ball 5 times a game. Well, right. 5 to 7 times a game, but we were triple option.
Which is amazing that all those quarterbacks went to Mizzou, run the triple option, because Larry Smith was the coach, right?
Yeah, and well, Kurt Props, I mean, speaking of him, I witnessed probably one of the worst leg breaks I've ever seen in it happened in a practice, and it was not fun, but I will tell you, it was like one of those moments, and you see something bad happen to one of your fellow teammates, you everything stops for about a minute. They move the practice, and it's on to the next, right? And it's so disgusting because, that's your guy, but then you have X number of days to practice during the season, during the spring. Right. You got to move on and, let the doctor and let the trainers take care of it. And, he came back from it, but he was never the same.
Never the same. Yeah.
Never the same.
Yeah.
So you, Kurt and Kurt, that's some pretty high level guys that you got had going through the system there. What are some of the other guys you played with?
Biggest name was probably Justin Smith.
Mm-hmm. I think we know him.
Yeah, he had a pretty decent career.
He was all right.
There you go. He was a defensive end and tight end for us. Clayton McAvoy, Pat Mangucci, Jared Gilpin, Brock Harvey.
Yeah, those were the days, man.
Yeah. Oh man, when was the last time Jeff City put out guys? There was so many Jeff.
Well, there was really one school.
Yeah.
Back then, right? Everybody kind of funneled through.
Yeah, it was. At that time, I mean, Helias wasn't what it is today.
Mm-hmm.
Blair Oaks kind of was non-existent at the time, so everybody in Jeff City, and then the surrounding areas kind of went through Jeff City. And so, coming from Pete Atkins and the power he had in Jeff City, and also Jeff City at the time, it was like you're either going to play football, basketball, or football. Like, so you got 2 football choices and 1 basketball.
Right. So talk a little bit about what it was like playing for Pete Atkins and being a teammate of Justin Smith, and what was he like in high school?
Yeah, with Coach Atkins first. So I didn't get a chance to actually play for Coach Atkins.
Okay.
He retired right as I got into high school. But all the coaches who were on staff under him were the guys that stayed and remained. So even though he wasn't the coach, he was still there.
Like playing for him by extension.
Exactly. Because he was always at practice. You know, he had his 2 cents. He still get on the coaches about certain things and all that stuff. So he still had control. He just wasn't labeled the head coach. But I mean, it was phenomenal. And you know, Smitty has always been bigger than everybody else. And the funny thing about him is, it was like he played the game to have fun. And as dominant as you know, we all know him, in high school, he'd pick and choose when he wanted to dominate. And so there'd be times where he's just out there having fun, and Coach Cole would just get on him. And right then you just see everything change.
You could turn it on.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where, as his teammates, it was fearful, because you're like, all right, I got to do scout team today. You know, and he's kind of playing around. You're like, all right, I'm good. And, you know, he get in trouble, and he'll wipe one whole side of the line down, and he'll get to the ball. And I mean, he was the biggest, he was the strongest, he was the fastest guy on the field. And so there was nothing you could do to stop him.
Right. And that continued on into college.
Well, speaking of, so he went in as a freshman. It's a famous story, and I don't know the exact weight, but he broke the power clean record entering as a true freshman.
He was doing crazy stuff in high school.
Like bizarre weight.
Absolutely.
Like crazy weight.
He was doing crazy weights back when he was still in high school, and that people weren't doing. You know, as far as his squats, his bench.
It kind of reminds me of, you know, the Jackson Cantwell, kind of like talking about some of the weight he's doing.
A little bit, yeah.
As a young guy, I don't know what he does on his squat and his power clean, but you get a guy like Justin Smith, I mean, as big as he is, him throwing weight around, and he came in as a freshman, and
son of another Jeff City, Jay.
Yeah,
Christian.
Yeah, did he play with you?
The
dad, what was it? How old is he?
He was at Mizzou at the time.
But he went to Jeff City, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I know Russ Bell was at
Russ Bell was at
I think I don't think Christian wasn't at
Christian didn't go to
or Christian wasn't at Jeff City.
He wasn't at Jeff City?
Russ Bell was at Jeff City.
Gotcha.
And then Russ Bell went off to went to Mizzou also. And so those guys were kind of 1 and 2 with the shot and disc.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, they were 1 and 2 with shot and disc, and Cantwell went off to do the Olympics and whatnot.
Yeah.
I mean, Justin Smith, he was, you know, we knew about the weight room, but he kind of took it to another, like, he lived in a weight room, and that was kind of his thing. It was weight room, football, school, and that was kind of his life. And so for us, you know, in high school, we'd go to the weight room because we had to. He went to the weight room because he enjoyed it. Like, he really had a love for the weight room and getting strong. And as we kind of saw how he developed, it was like, wow, the weight room really does do something for you.
Yeah.
Christian Cantwell went to Eldon High School.
Okay.
By the way, thanks to the booth, the crack staff.
So you know, when I heard when Justin Smith had moved back from the NFL and he was retired, that he put up one heck of a weight room in his house. Speaking of, he's still wanting to do, you know, he still does all that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, old habits probably die hard, right?
Yeah.
You do that your entire life. You're going to keep doing it when you finish.
Yeah, you're going to keep doing it. You know.
Yeah, superhuman strength, and he was one of those guys in the NFL. I remember talking to Blaine Gabbert one time. They played together with the 49ers. He was like, oh, he's just a freak.
Yeah,
like, he is. You know, and that's saying a lot at the NFL level.
Oh, absolutely.
That's saying, again, there's certain guys, but there's only a few of them.
Yeah.
That kind of have those superhuman qualities that are, you know, highly cherished. And when they turn them on, and very few people can stop it, if any. Yep. So it's interesting. I'd like to get your take on this. Years ago.
Well, before you go on that, I'd say, remember, there was a year in when he was with San Francisco that he was he got elected to the Pro Bowl as a DN and a D tackle, like for 2 positions. Yeah. So I mean, that right there alone. Yeah. He was different.
So we were talking earlier. You mentioned you know, about like getting that extra work in and all those different things. And we had a guy, Benny Anderson, worked with us years ago, and he's an offensive lineman, played in the league for a number of years. Gigantic guy at the time. Like he's definitely like not as big as he used to be, but he was part of like that offensive line with the Baltimore Ravens that was like one of the largest ever. And they had the poor guy who got his eye hurt by the flag.
Oh yeah,
that whole crew. So, but he made a comment to me. He said, looking back on my career, he goes, I wish I would have spent more time on the skill development side, because he was watching what we were doing with these young kids and he was coaching them. He said, if I would have spent more time in the off season working on my skill development versus going in the weight room, he said, because what I figured out is out of let's just say 16 game season, if there's 16 games, 14 of which I'm going to be the same as all the guys I'm going against. So it doesn't really matter what I do in the weight room because we're all kind of on the same level.
Yes.
One week, I'm going to dominate. Does not matter what this guy does. He's just outclassed, and I'm going to get him.
Right.
But then there's one guy that we're going to play that it does not matter what I do in the offseason. He's going to get me no matter what. He's stronger than me. He's faster than me. And I'm in trouble, right? That 1 week. But the other 14 weeks were real similar to each other.
Mm-hmm.
But those outlier guys, that's the thing. He's like, if I would have spent more time working on developing myself and the skills, it could have maybe bought me another couple extra years. And so you look at that, and you made a perfect, Kobe analogy is you start stacking those days on top of each other. Like we tell kids, in a typical week in high school, you're going to get an individual. You may get 10 minutes of solid individual work, but there could be 15 to 20 kids at your position group. So
right.
How many reps are you getting, and how many coaches do you have to work the drills, right? So it's pretty limited. And then, so let's just say 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it might be. As the season goes on, you get less and less and less because the games are more important and you focus more on the game. But, you spend an hour doing skill training during the week.
Mm-hmm.
That's a week's worth of skill development that you're going to get in a practice in 1 hour. You do that 2 hours a week. That's 2 weeks worth.
Yep.
You do it 3, it starts to stack. This cumulative effect starts to take place, and kids don't understand. Like it's like compound interest. Once that thing starts rolling, you're making money. You're making money on yourself because all of a sudden those skill sets and people that are trying to catch you that start to do stuff later, you already got the momentum built up. Yep. And so, yes, they might be more talented than you, but if you can do what you're supposed to do, again, though, working just to work sometimes isn't the best thing. You need to be working and figuring out what it is you need to be working on, right? And figuring out what those weaknesses are. But I think that's where the beauty of like off-season skill development is back when we were younger, like you had to just do it on your own and figure it out, right? Now you can get around people like yourself that know what they're doing and can speed the process up.
Absolutely.
Right? So what's your experience been with like coaching, kids outside of your program that get to come in that are just, a run of the mill, like kid just trying to figure it out. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm going to go back on what you said. We were talking about the more experience you have. And so one of the things I'll tell guys all the time is think of a race car driver, right? There's a reason why a race car driver can drive 100 miles an hour and then turn at 90 degrees, 90 miles an hour, right? The average human, they can't do it because they have no experience with it. So the more they practice, the better they are. So when we talk about route running, it's a reason. Like I know you get bored with running a dig route, but the idea is you're running that dig route. And so every time you run it, you're getting a feel for it. You're getting a better feel for it. You're getting a better feel for it so that when game time comes in 6 months from now, 8 months from now, you're able to run that dig route and you're pushing at 90%, 95%, and boom, now you can make that cut, right? Where you've created so much separation. But if it's something that you maybe worked at an hour 1 week and then you took a couple weeks off and then you maybe an hour another week and now season's here, well, now you're running at 70 miles an hour or 70%, right? Now it's easy for the defender to make a break on that ball. If you try to go 100 or 90, now you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to roll an ankle. You're going to, right? Yeah.
And so hamstrings and all that stuff.
Absolutely. So it's like, the more repetitions you get, the more you practice at something, the better you are with it. The more reps you get running routes, increases, how fast you can run those routes and to get in and out of your breaks. So it's like the details of that. And that's just from a receiver standpoint. It goes with everything. Quarterbacks throwing the ball, going through their reads, whatever the case may be. Quarterback studies defense. He has an idea of where the defense is going. They see the safety shift. They have an idea of, what 3 coverages it could be.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if those corners go with guys, it's man, it's zone, whatever the case may be, you can read and process that information faster. And so the more you put in that work, the easier it is on game day. Football is one sport where you're going to spend 10, 11 months of the year working for 10 or 11 games. So not very many opportunities. So what is it that you want to put on film in those opportunities, right? And so, that's kind of, the message I send to young guys. But going back to your question about training, I love it because with the training, I don't really have to force guys to come in. Yeah, I encourage guys to come in and say, hey, if you want to get better, this is some of the things you got to do, right? But then you get a group of kids that are like, no, I just want to be better. I want to improve. I want to get better. And I love those kids because if you don't have to force them to come in, they're going to come in with a chip on their shoulder. They're going to work their butts off. They're going to push themselves. And you can gradually see the progressions that they're making. And so you might get a kid who may not even make a team one year. All right, get into the season. All right, he's made the team. Well, now he's made the team and now he's getting reps. All right, and now he's getting those reps and now he's capitalizing on those reps. And it's nothing more than, you just tweaking something here or there, but that kid just getting more and more confidence and being comfortable in what they're doing and understanding the game and the principles and different concepts of how to get open, how to attack leverage, how to read things.
So is it more rewarding for a guy like that? You're training a guy like that and he makes his team, he maybe starts varsity as opposed to having the superstar guy?
Yeah, it's more rewarding for me to work with a kid who appreciates the work and who's going to live into the work. And the reason it's more rewarding is because football is a reflection of life. If you've got a kid that's going to work his butt off, even if he's not the most talented kid, but he's going to work his butt off, put him in any industry in the world, and he's going to be successful because he's got that work ethic. If you're a talented kid and you're like, well, I'm going to just, I'm going to come because you want me to, but I'm not going to push myself.
Yeah.
Right. All right. You put him in that work industry and he's going to fall off. He's going to get fired. Right?
And unfortunately, you see that a lot.
Way more than,
where are they now?
More than we should.
Where are they now?
Yeah.
And it is interesting. And I will tell you, I've talked about this tons of time on here, but I say it's the kiss of death when kids get early offers and then they stop working.
Yes.
Because a lot of times, did they really earn that? No, they hit the genetic lottery and somebody valued what they had and what they're bringing to the table. And they need people in their corner pushing them. But we've had this conversation.
Yes.
Sometimes kids might not even listen to someone that's got the experience that you have. They're going to drown you out because you know what? I've already been validated by Mizzou, Oklahoma, Illinois, whoever. But they don't know the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
Yes, they've been validated as a prospect.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean anything about what you're going to deliver as a player? It doesn't.
It does.
It does not. And so, I think that's the hardest thing is kids are really fooled into a lot of things via social media, fooled into a lot of things by their social group telling them how good they are. Maybe a parent or two that doesn't quite understand what's going on. So they think like, oh my gosh, my baby's going to the NFL. And it's like, you can't skip steps.
Not at all.
You cannot skip. You have to take one step at a time. And so I think, it's interesting. We both have boys. Your son's older than my son, but we both have boys that are in the game. And your son is a excellent prospect coming up. We've talked about this, and I think it's one of the toughest things as a coach is coaching your own child.
Yes.
Because they don't want to listen anyway, right?
Kids don't want to listen to their parents.
Yeah.
Period.
So, and you know what though? What I have found is that they do listen, but they definitely fight back a whole lot more with someone that they know, love, and trust a lot more because it's that parent intimate relationship. But what has your experience been with coaching your son Corday? You got him at school, and then you get to see him in the off season. What's that like?
Man, it's a double-edged sword. It's fun because I get to sit there and see the progression he's making. I get to see him in an environment that he really enjoys and compete, right? But at the same time, it drives me crazy because I'm with him all day. I see him all day. And so there's times of the day where he might sit up in his room for 5, 6, 7 hours, on the phone or playing video games. And I'm like, hey,
what are you doing?
Yeah.
Could we be doing something more productive?
Right. Absolutely. And it's like, and it's tough for me because playing at the highest level, I see the work that goes into it. And it's one thing to make it to that level. It's another thing to stay there. And the work never stops. It never stops. And so you think about kids now, they may leave for school or start school at 7, right? They may get out of school at 3:00. Well, at the highest level, you're still there from 7 to 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock. But now instead of having math and science and social studies, you've got 7-on-7, you got 1-on-1s, you've got film study, you've got all these different.
Might play another sport.
Yeah. Right. And so you've got all this different stuff going on. But the work never stops. And so with him, I constantly try to tell him, like, hey, if you want to get to this level, if you have these goals set, you've got to win the day-to-day battles. Like, you can't say, I'm going to go to college. Okay, I'm going to put this day off and this day off and this day off and wait till my junior year and then try to make it. Or, I'm going to go to the league. So maybe my senior year, I'm going to try to turn it on. Like, no, if that's your goal, then your baby steps have to get you there. Like, today, you've got to maximize your potential. If you have free time, maybe you're sitting in front of the TV, do some abs or something, throw a football up in the air, right? Just turn on some game film instead of watching, a TV show and just, watch other receivers, watch other defensive backs, what they're doing, what their tendencies are, and kind of learn. When you watch the Super Bowl, right? Don't just watch it from a fan standpoint. See what kind of routes they're running. See if you can tell what the coverage is before, the ball snapped. So for me, it's kind of educating them in that sense. But at the same time, I feel like I started this, or I may have started this too early for him, where he didn't understand anything. He was like, "Dude, I just want to play football." I'm like, "Yeah, but you're in 5th grade. You need to know this stuff right by now." Putting that pressure on him. But I gotta say, man, I enjoy it, and I love the atmosphere he's in now because he's around a group of guys that really want to excel, really want to try to get to that next level.
One of the best freshman teams in the state.
Yes, stacked.
Yeah, and so it makes it much easier for me because now he sees me talking to some of the juniors, some of the seniors in at the school with them, and he's like, "Man, that's the same thing he keeps telling me." Like, yeah,
really? You think?
Yeah, it's like it's like the formula is easy. The hard part is implementing it.
Right.
The hard part.
And
is
he's one of those
together.
gifted athletes. So you have that battle of he's gifted. I've been watching him for years. He's been better than everybody athletically. So he has that edge. He can throw him the ball. He's got it. But now he's with a lot of good guys. So he has to. You're a great athlete, but now you got to put in the work. So
yes.
You deal with that on a daily basis.
Oh, absolutely. So, and the best thing about this year was he was a kid that, like you said, he has the ability, he has the talent, right? But now you're the youngest. So, yeah, you can dominate at your freshman level and you can go out there and, you can play better than everybody else. But what happens when we move you up to the JV or the varsity? Now you're playing with kids older than you that have been in the weight room for 3-4 years longer than you, that understand the game a little more than you, and that are faster than you. So how do you adapt to that? How do you play? How do you play at that level? Right. And it's like, you've got to learn ways to and figure out ways to be successful.
It was eye-opening for that freshman group because that was basically an all-star team that arrived at CBC together at every position. And they arrived and then they saw the upperclassmen and they're like, whoa, we're not going to walk in here and be the man. Right.
Well, it is funny every year. It is so interesting to me because it like repeats itself every year. So you have like the better, let's just call them better kids in the 8th grade. And you have some kids that are going to stay at their public school. Then you have a certain group of kids that's probably like going to look for a different opportunity, whether it be that they're on a non-middle school team and like they've been on an all-star team, or they go to a parochial school, whatever it might be. They're going to probably look for the private school route. Well, then you start listening to them talk and making decisions, and it almost turns into like this, like we're all going here. So I think a lot of people perceive that there's like a ton of recruiting going on. Mm-hmm. My experience has been it's the kids collectively grouping up together. And
I played with this guy. Hey, let's go.
Yeah, then they start to like kind of grow as a group, and it is weird because you'll see like those groups will kind of like click together, and then they go to school, and then like maybe 2 or 3 different groups of kids then go to the same school. They come together, now they're a good team. And so but then but they're all blind to the fact that like they think they are the like the guys, right?
Yep.
And then and then the reality of it is out of that group, there's probably 2 to 3 that are guys are going to be the dudes.
Yep.
And so people start falling off because the work gets too hard, or they lose interest and start thinking about other things in life, and
Right.
they're not really that focused on it. So I always from afar watch the freshman group. It's rising 8th graders with a little smile on my face, because so many of them, and a lot of the parents I think have, it's a microcosm of what you experience going into college.
Yes.
Right. It's
Yes.
like a micro experience of that. And then, because everybody gets to go to high school, right?
You're right. Right.
But they start getting weeded out after that freshman, sophomore year. And then suddenly, junior and senior year, you see who the guys are. But,
Absolutely.
like at a school like CBC, if you're getting on the field as a sophomore, that you're beating somebody out that's older than you.
Correct. Yep.
So go back to Mizzou and talk about where the program was at that point. And then you played for Coach Smith and then Coach Pinkel, and talk about the difference between those 2 coaches.
Yeah. So when I came in, it was right at the same time that Corby Jones had just left. He was leaving as I was coming in. So they came off a couple bowl wins. And so for me, my passion, one was to play 2 sports in college, but the other, seeing teams like UCLA or Nebraska's and North Carolina's, all these schools that were the big dogs in their state. Like I wanted to be a part of that with Missouri. I just wanted to wear that Missouri on my chest, being a city our state I've grown up in, all my family was in, and have them close to home. So went to Mizzou, and unfortunately, my freshman and sophomore year, which was Larry Smith's last 2 years, we had losing seasons, and we didn't make a bowl game. With Larry Smith at that point in time, I mean, he was kind of getting close to retirement anyway, and the players kind of ran the program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of that was going on even when they were doing good.
Yeah.
Some interesting stuff.
Yep, players ran the program, and so it was one of those things. Kind of, summertime workouts were optional, right? And it was like, we don't really
Can't
have
do that.
To go,
Yeah.
Right? We don't have to go. All right, we'll miss a couple of days this week, and then maybe a couple of days, next week. But then Gary Pinkel came in, and it was night and day different. Gary Pinkel was coming into Power 5 from Toledo, and he wanted to change the entire mentality of the program. Plus, he's a military guy.
Yeah.
So when he came in, everything was just cut and dry. Yeah, it might be listed as optional, but it's mandatory. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts.
Mandatory optional.
Correct.
And we're taking attendance.
Yes.
Taking attendance.
Taking attendance. I mean,
Yeah, you're on my secret list.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to send somebody to every classroom.
Mm-hmm.
You will be at class. You're not going to be late to anything. Like everything was kind of, cut and dry. At the same time, everything was scheduled, and, we stuck to the schedule. And so at first when he got in there, because the kids had kind of ran the program, we were kind of like, we don't want to buy into this. Like, we don't want to do this. But when we started doing it, our guys, we had been bulking up as far as size.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had really big guys, but we were getting hurt pretty easy, pulling muscles, things like that. And so they changed the mentality of how we worked in the weight room. And so you start seeing big guys become stronger and faster, quicker, being able to move a lot more. So, over those next 2 years with them, we saw everything changing. Even though we didn't go to a bowl game my junior, senior year, we were in games late in the game, and so we had to figure out how to win at that point in time. And so you saw the culture and everything changing. And I mean, he did a great job. I think with the addition of Gary Pinkel when he came in, it really taught me how to be a pro once I left the program. Because going pro, they're not looking out for you as far as, hey, you got to be here at this time. Like, it's very simple. It's
right.
Like, you're either here on time or we're taking money.
Right, like any other job.
Yes.
We're paying you. You better do what
absolutely
you got to do.
We're paying you, and at the same time, even when you're here, we're bringing free agents in on a continuous basis, working them out, trying them out. We want to see if we can find a diamond in the rough that can come take your spot based off their training and whatnot. So, I feel like what I learned with Coach Pinkel really helped me become a better pro.
At what point did you realize that professional football was going to be a chance, an opportunity for you?
I think the first time it really hit me was after my sophomore season. There was some talk based off what I did as a receiver. That was like, if you keep on this path, there's a chance you can go pro. And so that's really it really hit me like, oh man, I got an opportunity to go pro. I mean, up until that point, it was like I just want to, one, get a scholarship so my parents don't have to pay for my college. And then two, is like I just want to play on TV. Like I just want to be, go out, in front of all these people and play. And so after my sophomore year, it really started hitting me that I had an opportunity. And then going through my junior year, it really became apparent. And that's when Coach Pingle came in and he was kind of, we'd have conversations like, if you really want to, and you change the way you're approaching your workouts and all this stuff. Because again, I was working hard in my mind. I was working hard because I was doing more than my teammates, but I wasn't doing everything to push myself. And so that was a big difference.
So what was the process to get yourself prepared for the draft with like NFL scouts coming to see you and all that?
That process, so I after football season, my senior year, I hired an agent. So what I did, I didn't know anything about agents and all that stuff. And I know Justin Smith had went a year or two before me. So his agent, Jim Steiner at the time, was one of the guys I wanted to reach out to and just talk to him about. But my whole method was, if you guys want to contact me, call my mom. Mom's going to look out for her kid. Like she's going to ask the 10 million questions that you would never think of. And as a young kid, you're just, whatever sounds good, you're going to be like, all right. Right. And so I sent them through her and I was like, listen, you come up with 3 of them that you like. And from those 3, we'll pick one. And so after my senior football season, I ended up joining Jim Steiner at SFX at the time. And they gave me the opportunity to go out to Phoenix and kind of work out for those next few months up until the combine. And so at that time, that was the first time for me to really just work out. Before that, winter condition, all that stuff.
There was like an elite out.
That is breaking it down. Yeah.
It really was. It was like breaking everything down. I'm talking, the 40s, the 3-cone, how to be successful in these. And that detail really came into play as a professional. And I'll get to that in a second. But it gave me a chance to go out there and perform. And that was my first time really working out and focusing on really becoming fit, because at that point in time, I was out there with about 13 other guys who were preparing for the combine also. And so, again, it was like going from high school to college again. Like, you're the small dog. These guys have been doing this, and for me, they've been doing it because I'd go off and play basketball and then come back. And so although I might be in shape, conditional, running shape, they were in physical shape and whatnot. So just kind of adjusting to that. And then some of the guys I was working out with were some big names that you hear through college football. And it's like, man, and they were in winning programs and things like that. So you just felt like they had a niche. But through the whole training aspect, they really broke down things like the importance of the 40, the importance of the 3-cone test, how to do it. Like, I knew for me, my 40-yard dash was 21 steps. And, so it was at that point where it's like, you got to know where you are at 7 steps. You got to know where you are at 14 steps when you're at 21 steps. Right. And so, just calculate that. So the same thing is what you learn as a professional athlete, the details of the routes. One, having a clock in your head and understanding when that quarterback's going to let go of the ball. And, you may have a dig route, but if you've got just a straight cover 1, all right, that quarterback might have 2 seconds. If you've got a blitz, a zone blitz or whatever, it may be 1.7 seconds. So it's really breaking down the details of the game so that you guys are on the same page. And it's little details like that, that determine how long you stay in the league. If you can learn the game and learn the system and be on that same page with your QB, then you're going to stay in the league a lot longer.
So you had to be ready-made come draft time.
Absolutely. So, and the other thing is, when you become a pro, they're not going to do anything like Matt was saying earlier with the skills and all that. They don't have time to make sure that you can get in and out of a break, or that you're this body fat or this what. Like, when you come in there, it's all about X's and O's. If you haven't done everything you need to do to be able to run, be strong enough to play and be durable, all right, we've got a pile of guys.
So be it, right?
Yeah,
we've got to find somebody else.
Yeah, we've got a pile of guys that are dying at the bits to be here.
Yeah.
And they're working their butts off year in, year out to get there.
So you realize that right out of the gate. I better stay on top of it or else I'm gone.
I thought I realized it right out of the gate. I didn't really realize it until we got into season my rookie year. And so even during season my rookie year, I wasn't getting any playing time. You know, I made the 53-man roster, but I wasn't dressing on game day those first couple games. And again, that was eating at me like, I've got to get out on this field. Like, you know, now this is professional. I remember we played the Raiders one of our first games, and this is when Jerry Rice played on the Raiders. And I'm like, damn, like, I've got to be out there. Like, you know, but it was like, you know, you got to continue to learn and grow. And so I remember going in one day and like, you know what, I'm going to start spending more time at the facility. And Tuesday's usually your day off. So I went up there on a Tuesday, you know, just kind of messing around. I'm going to go lift weights and act like I'm watching film so somebody can see me. And I went up there, and in the bubble, it was full of guys running 40s, doing vertical jumps, broad jumps, all these different things. And I'm asked one of our teams, like, what's this? And he's like, these are all free agents. He was like,
They bring
Tuesday.
Yeah, they bring them in
every Tuesday.
Yep. And they'll work these guys out. They'll get their information in case somebody gets hurt, or if they feel like somebody's not producing, or if there's a guy over here that they feel like they can bring in that, you know, can do the same thing that this $10 million guy is doing, that's going to save them money in the salary cap.
Yep.
Like, you know, it's a business.
I don't think a lot of people realize that. Yeah. I mean, every Tuesday, their guys are working out.
Yep.
That's what it is. And it's how it works.
Yep.
And so then at what point did you reach the field and feel comfortable that, okay, now I got this?
It was around game, I think 11. We ended up going out to Seattle and play, and I really got a chance to like get out on the field and really get some real reps. And caught a couple balls that game. And so at that point in time, I was like, oh yeah, I can do this. And so I finished the season, had a solid rookie year. In Chicago at the time, I averaged about 20 yards a catch finishing my rookie year. And it was the most since I think Willie Gault back in the 80s. Yeah. So I mean, excited, looking forward to it. You know, I can't wait till next year gets here. They're hyping me up. They're talking about me being a starter. You know, I'm anxious. And sure enough, our head coach, Dick Duran, gets fired. Lovie Smith gets hired. And then when Lovie Smith gets hired, Musa Muhammad comes in, right? And he signs a big contract. And they're like, you guys have similar body types. We're going to put you on the same side of the ball as him. But since he's our money guy, you're going to start behind him. And so for me, it was like, no, this is BS. You know, this is BS. It's like, no, this is business.
Yeah.
You know, it's that's what it is. It's business. So, you know, you got to find a way on the field. All right. So let's do some special teams and try to work our way up.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was Lovey's guy, of course, because he brought him in. So then there's that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, so even my time in Chicago was like when I left Chicago after my fourth year, I had such a grudge against Chicago and Lovie Smith at the time. And for me, I was still immature where I didn't see it as a business. I was just like, no, this is bull crap. Like they should have played me. And so as I, as the years go on and you kind of see how the game is developed, you're seeing, I remember being in Chicago and we let Marty Booker go. We let Keith Traylor go. We let Ted Washington go. And I'm like, these are dudes, it's like, no, this is a business, and so that was a big eye opener for me.
And then you finished out your career with Tennessee.
Yes. Finished out with Tennessee. And so got a chance to go there and felt like the old dog at Tennessee, being with young guys, Vince Young, Chris Johnson, Lindell White, all those guys. And so felt like an old head. And at that time, we brought Kenny Britt in and Nate Washington. And, it was, so my mentality had really changed because I had seen so much in Chicago that it prepared me to be in Tennessee. And so being in Tennessee, it was like, again, you can't take this stuff personal. You've got to work on yourself, work on what you're doing, and, be the best teammate you can be, but also bring the next generation up because you need those guys in order for you to be successful.
So you kept building yourself mentally and physically from high school through Mizzou, through the NFL.
Absolutely.
And what advice on that would you give a kid who's listening today? How to do that? How to get through that?
The main thing I would say is control what you can control. You're going to have some ups and downs. Every day is not going to be sunny. Every day is not going to be beautiful. There's going to be a lot of days where there's thunderstorms, tornadoes, earthquakes, whatever the case may be. But the idea is understand what you want to be at the finish line. And every step you take, which is your day-by-day routine, make it a habit. don't sacrifice or don't make any sacrifices that don't benefit you in the long run, right? If you've got some buddies who don't have the same goals as you, trying to tell you, hey, let's go hang out or let's go do this, make sure you're taking care of what you need to take care of first. And again, it's a marathon. I tell kids all the time, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yep.
So day by day, just get better, improve today, and be better tomorrow than you were today.
Amen.
Same thing. And you're training wide receivers at Elite
Yes.
on a regular basis besides coaching at CBC. How can guys get in touch with you? I don't know if you do personals or if just come in and talk to you, pick your brain. How can people get in touch with you?
Come down to Elite. I mean, me and Matt have been talking about different opportunities to actually have the building open where we can, maneuver, have more space to get a lot of things done, whether that be early morning stuff, whether we do stuff on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But I mean, just come through Elite in the afternoons, man. I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm there. If a kid wants to work out, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, just contact somebody at Elite. And
Any social media you want to?
I do have social media. I'm gonna have one of you guys pull up my name. I'm not that heavy into it.
Justin's acting like an old head. I have social media. I know.
On our Elite one, I copied it. I did copy his.
We'll put it. We can put it at the end of the YouTube. We can put it in the YouTube.
Yeah, the other thing is too. One of the things
and on our Twitter
we're talking about with our quarterback receiver combo is teaching these guys how to study film.
Yes,
a lot of these young players are they're really good at doing a bunch of moves, throwing wise and route running wise, that will never ever be a part of the game that you watch. I mean, just watch an NFL game.
Yep.
Like, it's very simple. Like, guys are moving in space into a particular area, and the ball comes to them if they are open, and if not, the ball doesn't come to them. Then, more importantly, can you actually catch the ball? The number of drops we see nowadays, I think, is emblematic of a lot of time being spent on things that don't matter, right? You're not going to see a ton of high-level presses in high school. So if you're spending all day long working with someone on jam releases, and they do it to you once or twice a year, you're wasting your time.
Right.
Like, let's learn how to run routes. Let's learn how to catch the ball. Let's learn how to put the ball where it's supposed to be as a quarterback. But I think we're going to have some really good opportunities coming up film-wise, where guys can really learn how to study film, but then also pick up tendencies, make them a better football player.
Yep. Matt, anything else you want to promote? Coming up,
no, we
got football combines.
Got the combine March 9th. I think that's going to be starting to fill up. So
training on Sundays.
We train every Sunday. We had a busy one this past Sunday.
A bunch of D1 quarterbacks.
There was a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of receivers, a lot of O linemen, a lot of D-backs. So just really good combination.
Right. And where can everybody reach you at?
Elite Football Academy on Instagram, and then Elite Football on Twitter.
Yep. JP Rock MO on Twitter, JP Rock Scouts U on Instagram, and JP at flyoverscouting.com by email. If you have any questions or comments, reach out to me and Matt. Enjoyed it. Special thanks to our guest, Justin Gage. Very good. Very informative. Absolutely. Sure. Absolutely. Thank you, Justin, for joining us. That'll do it for us. We've enjoyed ourselves, and we will talk to you soon. Everybody stay safe.